parents.
Mm-hmm.
I had Christian parents who taught me how to care for the poor, for the needy, for those who we say, that Allah in His Messenger has told us that we should be able to care for. I said, they're the ones who taught me that. I said, and they put me on a path of doing, caring for individuals. I said, what Islam did was show me the methodology by which to do so.
Right.
Gave me the deen by which to do so. But I said, you know what? I was an adult.
Right.
I already knew these things that I had learned, from my parents. I said, so you may be honoring me. I said, but actually the honor goes to my parents.
Right. So, like I said, we can move into you starting the center. So talk about how you started the center, the health center, and how it moved into being a shelter, and what was going on in the community at the time that happened, and how were Muslim women homeless and victims of domestic violence, how were they being handled at the particular time?
Okay, so as I say, the beginning of this goes back to my grandmother, because my mother told me to go to school to be a nurse, and my grandmother, and I said that. So I decided in that moment in the 9th grade that I would go to school, and then I would establish a place that somebody like my grandmother could be able to come to. Okay. Now in the meantime, I'm now at Howard University, and I'm accepting Islam. I've accepted Islam, and one of the things that I saw is that when Muslim women would come into Howard University, again, a teaching hospital, right? And mashallah, that's how teaching hospitals work, is that the Muslim women would request, like when they come in for labor, that they wanted to be able to keep their head covered. They want to be able to have the don called in the baby's ears. They didn't want to be examined by any men. And they would ask their doctors this. And the doctor would say, okay, sure, not a problem. But then what I also did was I petitioned to be able to be with them, because I was there at the hospital. I could come when they would come in labor, just to be able to advocate on behalf of the Muslim women. And what I saw was that none of those things were honored. None of that was honored. And I learned at that moment that a doctor cannot write an order against hospital policy. So they were just lying. They were just straight up lying. They can't be, because it was a hospital policy for all of those things, right? So now my clinic, gonna transition. Say, okay, so in this same clinic, I'm gonna provide culturally competent, Islamically, like to be mindful of Muslim women's needs. So that was the reason why we became Al-Nisa, health center, because of the fact that I wanted it to also be able to care for those who were like my grandmother and being mindful of the needs of Muslim women. That's what, so I combined them. Okay, so and in this clinic, okay, now that I have the clinic, and I found a place to be able to put it in, which is, everybody knows the original address of 5115 Liberty Heights. So I had I did that. And on one occasion, the Muslim women would come, because they also had no money, no resources, no status. They did the whole gamut of the reasons why. So they came, and alhamdulillah, I was able to, take care of them, in spite of that. And I tell people, I said, even in this clinic, that I never would, humiliate or embarrass anybody just because they didn't have any money. I said, so how I was able to, to even make any money was that, I said that I did take people who had the money, the ability to pay. So I said, so in this clinic, a homeless sister or somebody without anything, without any status, might be sitting right next to Blue Cross Blue Shield. That it would be like that, and only I would know who had nothing. Only I would know. And so I allow people to keep their dignity, which is always important, to allow people to, to be respected and have their dignity. And it got to be known that I would take care of these Muslim women, and for the most part, immigrant Muslim women, right? Because the other women could get Medicaid and whatever. And then on this one day, a man brought his wife, a Muslim man brought his wife, and to be examined. And this is the part that I know people may have heard it before, but to be examined. And I said, okay, I'm bringing her to the back. I know she didn't have anything. I was bringing her back to get an exam. right? And he said he wanted to be able to come back, you know, he wanted to be with her while she was being examined. And so the law is that if she didn't say no, that he could. I thought it was odd because, men don't want to come back while a woman is getting a female exam. But so I brought him back to the exam room and I said, okay, well, if he wants a show, you know, So I had to get totally undressed, pull out the stirrups, got the speculum, all my little pieces of instruments or whatever, and have us, get up on the table and, being, the whole position. And then this man, he says, I think I'll just go sit back out front. And then I said, of course you will. Of course you will. And so why this is so key is because he's not out front, we're alone. And so for the first time in this woman's adult life, she's alone with someone she could trust. Mm-hmm. And she tells me that she's a victim of domestic violence. I had not really been exposed to domestic violence like that. Not as a Muslim, but we all can recall somebody, but you don't really think about it when it's not, like a priority in your life or, a lot of people. So what I did, she was talking with me and she was and she was like, she was crying and all of this. So I didn't know what to do. Yeah. I didn't know what to do. So what I did was, and this is my, my point is I said that the only thing I could do is to bring her back, give her some sense of, when she's there, like I can, I would say calm her down or soothe her or comfort her or something, at least when she's there. So when I after I finished with, with the exam, because she didn't really, she was just probably telling him she just needed to go to the doctor. But, so she had more bruises than she had anything that had to do with GYN stuff. So, and he was just confident that I wasn't going to tell anybody. And because back then you didn't even have to report it like that. Right. So he came back and I said, well, I'm going to have to bring your wife back. And I told people I would make up diseases. So I told him, I said, yes, I said, you're going to have to bring your wife back. I said, because she got monodiglycerized vaginosis encephalitis. Oh, I know. And I said, don't that sound like she about to die? I'm like, he didn't know no different. He wasn't from this country, no way. And I just made that up. But I said, you need to bring her back. So I kept having her to come back. So I said, well, I need to keep checking on it, see if it make sure it's doing better. And I might prescribe her some, over-the-counter cream or something. So he didn't know. But what ended up happening is that they must have a club or something, people who are, abusers. Or if they said, well, my wife. And they said, well, tell me about that place where you took your wife to. So I started getting more and more women, Muslim women who were abusive. So the first thing that I did was, because the clinic was a house, I would put them upstairs. I would put them in, to keep them if somebody wanted to actually be away. The problem with that, though, is because the address was known, they would come there looking and says, let my wife go. I know she's up in here. I know she's up in there, right? And I realized, I said, I'm just putting a Band-Aid, on a major situation. And that was when I decided that the only way to really make a difference was to establish a shelter for Muslim women victims of domestic violence.